Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is your boy NovoSense here, and welcome to Victoria 3, a new release by Paradox Interactive, or fairly new release by Paradox Interactive, which focuses on society simulation and nation building, as well as an economy simulator, basically. As you might have guessed by the title, today we're going to be going over the user interface, diplomacy, and the technology screens. This is the first installation of the beginner's guide to Victoria 3 that I'm making, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. There will be also further parts of this, such as like an economic guide, a politics guide, etc. They might be bundled up in like 2 or 3 videos, or 2 or 3 subjects per video. Try and just kind of get everything here in a couple of videos here for you guys. So this first one here, like I mentioned, is going to be the user interface, diplomacy, technology. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the user interface first. That way we have like a baseline that we can then work on in the other videos and also in this one. So to start off, we're going to go ahead and start off here on the top left. I was about to say right there, top left, with the country information. Now today I'm just going to be using Prussia here as a guinea pig per se, because that is going to be my first nation that I'll be playing as in the, when I do like my series on this. So we're going to be playing as Prussia first, so kind of giving you guys a little bit of a overview of this nation's current status as well. So on the top left, as you can see the Prussian flag. And you have here King Frederick Wilhelm von something. I'm just going to butcher, so I'm not going to say it. But basically, he's like the ruler of our nation. He's the ruler, politician in general, as you can see right here. He is also going to be commander-in-chief, so it means that he also is present in the military. And you're going to see where he's located and all that stuff, but we'll go into all that here in a little bit later. For now, we're just looking at the overview of the actual nation itself. So as you can see, we're pretty much rank 5, right? We're considered to be a great power. We currently hold 150 battalions, or in other words, regular battalions, which these are our standing army, pretty much. These are our people that are career soldiers, basically. And then you also have 51 battalions, conscript battalions, which these guys are going to be the people that you rise up from your regular population to basically, fight in a war. Basically, think of this like as a drafted soldiers, right? Flotillas, this deals with their navy. GDP, this is going to be obviously your gross domestic product. Probably going to be one of the most important things here in the in Victoria 3. Obviously, you want to get this number higher and higher and higher. All right, GDP go up. But anyways, yeah. So this is pretty much going to determine how productive your nation is. So the more goods you have in a market, the more exchange of goods you have in a market, more produced goods you have in a market, the better it would be for your nation, obviously. So therefore, the more money is going around, etc., which leads to this, and we'll go into all that in a little bit. In the economy guide, probably actually on that. Important thing is also population. Now, as I mentioned in the population video here, this is going to be the backbone of everything you do in Victoria 3. So everything you do in Victoria 3 revolves around your population, and it is effectively controlled by population. So you kind of have to nudge them in the correct manner. That's why it is considered a society simulator. And we'll go into all that as well in the next video. Literacy, 43.8% as of right now. That means that 6 million out of 13.74 millions that are currently living in my incorporated states, which are just your states that are basically recognized as states. For example, like in real life USA, right? We have 50 states which are recognized as our incorporated states, but we also have territories. So anything outside in this game are considered, like Puerto Rico and stuff in real life, right? USA has those. They're considered territories. In the game, they're considered unincorporated states. So states that are not directly controlled by you, but they are held by you per se. And when we get, for example, like France, right? They have, these here are their core states, and it's also going to be their incorporated states, like every state that is here, like Limousin, Poitou, Loire, Orléans, Ile-de-France, etc. All those states are going to be, incorporated, and then this one is going to be unincorporated, you see? It has its pros and cons, but we're going to get into that when we get into, like, the whole colonization and stuff in the next video. For now, we're just going over, like, the user interface real quick. So that's that, and then you have the standard of living, which again is very important for your nation as well. State religion and primary cultures. Obviously, we are North German. We are also currently Protestant. The primary cultures does have a pretty big effect, and we're going to go ahead and go over that as well in the next video with the whole population, cultures, idea and all that stuff. And then here you can see your current government, which as you can see as Prussia, we are a absolute monarchy, which means that this government form holds the complete power with the king or the queen. If you look at other nations, for example, such as France, and you go over here and click on their banner, or you can just right click on a nation and click information, like so, and it will bring up the same menu you have, but it just be based on their nation. So this is a really quick and easy way to see, hey, how much GDP they have, or or just what's their pop like, or what's the literacy rate looking like, or what the relation is looking like. This is going to be very important in the diplomacy, which we'll be going over today as well. So you'll be seeing me using that as well and letting you guys know. An example like this, right? So cordial, but they're belligerent towards us. But we'll look into that a little bit more. But pretty much here you can see, again, the same menu that you see in your screen, but you'll see for their nation, right? And you can also see constitutional monarchy. You can see these guys as well. HM's government, them, Sardoms. They function a little bit differently, but in essence, it's the same, right? The Sardom is just the king. And then you have this one. Functions similarly, but the king has a little bit less power because voting, there's voting in place in the constitution that also dictates the laws. And I think these guys are a little bit different. Granted, an illustrious institution, yeah. Racist government, yeah. Well, they pretty much do the same thing, with the parliament and stuff like in real life. Anyways, so there you go. So that's that, right? Now, so that's pretty much takes care of like the user interface in terms of this, in terms of your nations. I did also mention great power ranking as well, which if you can see here, there's going to be power ranks 1 through 6. There's no, I think there's not like a specific number that I consider to be great power. There might be, but I'm not quite sure on that, to be honest. But basically, the higher you are here, the better. And the things that determine these rankings is going to be based on your prestige, right? This can be what determines those rankings. This can be improved by GDP, standard of living, and population. That's some ways you can get prestige. You can also get prestige, as you can see here, from having a greater military, greater naval projection. Technologies will also be able to help you with those. And obviously, a greater GDP, like I mentioned, is going to help you out a lot. So the higher the GDP you have, the better. Right now, the Great Qing has the highest GDP at 147.4 million. But unfortunately, their prestige, although it is high, they are considered to be only 12th place. As you can see, and that's because they are an unrecognized regional power. That's because they're having some internal struggles here in the Great Qing, which basically doesn't let them, get anywhere or get more powerful than what they could potentially be. I do plan on playing as them in like a different playthrough, to be honest. I feel like they will be pretty fun to play as, to be honest. But we'll get into that when we get to that. For now, we'll just stick with this. All right, so as you can also see here, this information that you see, at least for your nation, is also available here. The main things you need are going to be right here in this little top left section. So you're going to have your GDP, your literacy rate, your standard of living, and your population. And you're also going to have radicals and loyalists added onto that. And we're going to go over that more in depth in the political aspect of this game. So on top of those, however, you do see that you have, in this case, a couple of, in my case, green bars, right, with a couple numbers. You're like, what the heck is going on here, right? Well, it's pretty simple. These are going to be considered just your currencies. So same thing as money, right? This one's a pretty self-explanatory one, right? Money is a currency they use in this game. In this case, we're using pounds because at the moment, the Great British are the current, world economic leaders. So everyone has to abide by their standards pretty much. Such as in the world right now, in the real world, the current, the US dollar is the current strongest currency, and we use that in most places, and it's accepted in most places. So there you go. Now the other three are going to be, the first one here is going to be bureaucracy. This is going to be typically used for just maintaining your state in general, right? So like your incorporated states and all that, just maintaining them. It's also going to be used for maintaining your trade routes, your generals and your admirals. And that's primarily like the biggest part. Oh, and also institutions as well, but we'll be going over that as well when we get to the politics. I'll be in the next video, but just know that it's used for all those things, right? It's used for all those things. And the way you get it is, you obviously have a base value, but the primary way to get it is through government administrations. And those, I will show you real quickly where to go, but do not freak out. Okay, do not freak out. Don't worry. We're going to get into all this here in a sec, or in the next couple videos. But it's going to be this one right here, government administration, which you can also go, I think, let's see, hold on, boys, right here, political lens and government administration. There you go. So this is where you would go to build stuff. And like I said, don't freak out. All right, it's all good. We're gonna get into it in a little bit, okay? Or potentially in the next couple of videos. But you know, I'm trying to take you guys step by step. All right, so that's what I'm doing here. So as you can see, the next thing you have is gonna be authority, which this basically is just dependent on how much authority your ruler has, right? So in my case, because we are an absolute monarchy, as a matter of fact, we have a greater authority compared to, let's say, the king of England, or sorry, of Great Britain, right? In this case, they have a lower authority because of the fact they have an HM's government, which constitutes a parliament, I believe. I think it does. Let me use maybe these guys as a better example. So, okay, so constitutional monarchy, right? They have a king, just them, and then they have, of course, the, you know, as the head of state, but then they also have voting, and the constitution dictates the laws. So he's not able to, you know, directly control it per se. There is some sort of like voting system, some sort of like lawful system that is constituted there. So it's not like us where we're an absolute monarchy, right? So in this case, they will have lesser authority than what I would, or what, for example, Russia would, because they're a complete tsardom. They rest, their power rests specifically on this guy, right? Tsar Nikolai Romanov. And in our case, our power rests specifically on this guy, right? So that's kind of where that comes from. And so because we are, and as you can see here, because we are an autocracy, right? Basically, again, one ruler holds our power. We get 250 of those. Now, you can also see all these things. Now, the main thing that authority is being used for is primarily going to be used for consumption taxes. You can also use it for like bolstering or suppressing an interest group. Yeah, I mean, basically it's just like the power. It just represents your leader's power within the nation. Pretty much, that's all it is. And it can be altered through laws. So, for example, if you go over here, which, again, we're going to get into this, but it can be altered here. And if you go to distribution of power, the lower you get, for example, let's say I want to build an oligarchy, a landed voting, I want to go for wealth voting, etc. As you can see here, now we only get 200 authority if we do oligarchy. And here we get 150. You see what I'm saying? But people like landed voting at the moment, right? So we can't do it quite yet, but you know, we'll get into why in the next video. But you know, ideally you would like to go to things that people in general they like, right? And that you are okay with doing, because at the end of the day, you are the player. So you get to decide what type of society you want to build, right? Do you want to have voting systems? Do you want to stay autocratic? Do you want to, you know, maybe build a theocracy, right? Or just go for parliamentary republic? It is completely up to you in this, right? The game does kind of nudge you in a certain direction, though, and typically it's going to be to try and liberalize at least some of your laws, right? For example, like the health system is a really good one. The public schools is a really good one. Private schools, public schools, they're both really good, right? Because usually we start off with no schools or sometimes religious schools and stuff. You want to kind of get to like the bottom of the thing here. Obviously, professional army would be really good. Sometimes you start off with peasant levies. Then you have like the internal things. You're going to probably want to go for secret police. These guys will take care of your, you know, potential revolutions and effectively rebels, right? Children's labor laws. Yeah. All right. You know, rights of women. You know, all those stuff there. So, you know, this is kind of where the game kind of nudges you to do. But in general, these aren't like necessarily game-breaking things, right? Like you can still maintain your autocratic power and your monarchical power without, you know, we're still changing these laws, right? So it's perfectly fine. So no big deal. All right, and then besides that, we have the influence, right? And the influence just basically, this is specifically just spent on only diplomacy actions, right? So in our case, obviously we get the more influence by becoming a great power, etc. Some technologies give you more influence as well. You may get bonuses from political groups as well. But in our case, we're just looking at just in a more general effect, right? You're going to be spending the influence here on diplomatic actions. In this case, we are in a customs union with multiple different of these smaller nations here around us. So that is why, you know, we're spending 25 per each customs unit we have. Now, let us suppose that we have a diplomatic play, or not a diplomatic play, sorry, that we have an improved relations, for example, with someone, and we say, hey, you know, let's improve relations here with France and potentially with Sweden, right? Now it goes down to 950. Well, why is that? That's because we wasted, not really wasted, but we improved relations with France and Sweden. That cost me 300 with France because they're a greater power, and 150 with Sweden because they're like a little bit of a lesser power, but they're still, I believe they're still, yeah, they're still mono power. Yeah, so yeah, lesser power, but compared to France, they're a great power. So that's why France costs more than Sweden. So it is dependent on who you ally with. If it's a great power, if it's a major power, etc., it will cost more or less depending on all of that. So that's basically what the diplomacy action is. It's anything that you do here will cost some sort, anything you do here in diplomatic actions will cost some sort of points towards your influence. Now, the way you can get this is obviously by becoming a great power. You know, like I mentioned before and all that stuff, you might have some technologies and everything to help you. But one of the ways you can also get it is through rivalries. So let us say, for example, we are rival with Austria at the moment, right? They are currently our rival. So because of them being our rival, right, we get, I believe it's plus 400 or something. Yes, plus 400 from rivalry with Austria. So if you decide to rival a nation, let's say I decide, this is not going to be the actual game, so it's fine if I do this. Let's say I decide to rival Spain, right, which by the way, they do have to have lesser relations with you, so I think their relations have to be poor, or neutral. Yeah, so they cannot be cordial, like for example Sweden, or they cannot be like, you know, these guys here, you know, stuff like that. They can't be of that relation. They have to be at least neutral or poor. Relations, not attitude. It is a little bit different. So rivalry in this case, just say we go here, right? And as you can see here, we're going to get plus 150 because they are a lesser power, right? But we're still going to get more influence. Now, here's a catch to this, though. You guys might want to be a little bit careful when you do that. Because the thing is that if, let's say, you are... When you rival someone, right, you basically seize all sort of diplomatic actions with them. In other words, you're basically saying, hey, we are now forever enemies, type stuff, right? So if you go over here, they are completely cold with us, and they're completely antagonistic. They see us as a threatening force. They are not going to trade as much as they might have, right, when we were not rivals. Okay, so rivalries, they basically is something that you would do, for example, like with Prussia and Austria, if you're completely sure that you're going to be attacking them, and it's just some easy way to get some extra points. In this case, Prussia does benefit from this, because having Austria as a rival gives you more diplomatic points, which you need in order to form Germany. And by that, I mean improve relations with all of these smaller nations in order to form Germany, right? So it does help out Prussia, but in general, it's not really required for you to do it unless you're like really needing it, and you're in a good position, in a good, strong position to do so, okay? So that's pretty much that, right? That's pretty much like the rivalry and the diplomatic actions and sections here and all that stuff. So the next one is going to be the money. Now, we're going to have a whole thing talking about money, so I'm just going to go over it really briefly. In this case, you have the money, you have your national revenue, national expenses. National revenue is greater than national expenses, so we're earning a positive income of 715 in our case, right? This is exactly where our money is coming from. This is where our money is going, right, at the moment. We have our taxation levels here. Income taxes that we're getting, or any sort of taxes we're getting here, basically going to be all these. Tariffs are going to be the trades the money we're getting from our trade. The money we're getting from each of our trades, which at the moment is going to be these. Minting is just going to be something on the side. We'll go into that a little bit, but basically it's done with like technologies and stuff, and you can get most of them. This is think about it like this, just like printing money. That's pretty much all it is, right? And then diplomatic packs, but you don't want to print too much, so there's a limit to it, obviously. We're only printing at 11k, as you can tell, and it's depending on your GP. Anyways, and then you have the investment pool transfer, which again, we'll go into all this. Diplomatic packs, we'll go into all this, so don't worry about that. And then here are your expenses, same type of thing. You can see where your money's going. You can decrease or increase it, earn you more or less money, right? Pretty self-explanatory. It seems easy, but you'll see when we get into economy guide where this can really is a tad more complicated. Oh, and by the way, remember when I said the authority things here that you can also spend it on consumption taxes? It's going to be this right here, right? So you spend authority to get more money. So in this case, services will probably be a good option. And typically you want to tax services. You want to tax wine, luxury furniture, porcelain, luxury clothes, things that primarily only the rich are going to use. Services in general is pretty good to tax. I don't see that it affects as much I don't think it really affects much of like the lower strata or the middle strata, to be honest, or even the upper strata. So it's a good kind of secondary income source you can get. So that's going to add, for us, for example, it's going to add 12.5 right there. So that's pretty good. And then you obviously taxing the rich is good because they already have more money. And in this game, they do favor to do that in order to get a lot more money. If you tax the poor, or for example, you tax grain, right, you're effectively taxing the poor because they're the ones that use the grain the most, right? If you tax clothes, furniture as well, they're going to use that the most. They need that the most. So that means that you're going to make the goods more expensive, which is going to really hurt their net income, right? So they're going to basically become either more poorer or richer depending on what you tax, right? And what taxes you take away. So liquor is one that the poor do use, but it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? We get 10K. So you kind of just to kind of balance this out. That's pretty much like the major point, right? Balancing out. And talking about balancing out, we're going to go ahead and talk about as well the bars as well, because I feel this is also a very important part. So in this case, we have, as you can see, these little green bars here below each of these numbers. And for these three, right, these three right here, you have, in this case, the bureaucracy, you have the authority, and the diplomacy, like I mentioned. Each bar, the further to the right it is, the more green it's going to be, which this means, in essence, that you will have, for example, for bureaucracy, the further to right it is good, right, in the sense that you get, in this case, a plus 2% to the state construction efficiency, right? So that part is good. But the issue is, and also if you go negative, it's the same way, right? You just get a negative 2% state construction efficiency. The higher it is, the better, because you do get a higher, percentage. But the thing that I found is, I believe it does cap. So in this case, it is 25%. This guy is also 23.7%. Infamy decay is not bad, actually, to be honest. So, if you're like doing like a lot of wars, you might definitely want to, leave this one up a little bit. But in general, at least in the beginning of the game, you probably want to utilize all of these currencies as much as you can. And that would be about putting them in towards the middle, right? So typically like a value of like plus or minus 100 or 200 would be ideal, right? Because you still get some sort of positives, but you're still using it to things you actually need, right? So there you go. And you'll see how I kind of judge that here a little bit in the Prussian game that you guys should be looking forward to. And then for money, though, it works a little bit differently. So as you can see, there's not really like a plus or a minus on that one. It's just like a bar, right? Like a whole bar right there. So what we're going to do is, well, in this case, you have like the bar is at halfway. So that means that this means that your gold reserves, right? Think about it as positive money. So you have an extra reserve of money. Is currently 1.84, but we're capped at having 3.68 million. This can be increased by a matter of different ways, but in this case, we're just looking at our current reserves, so up here. And basically, you are able to get this bar lower to 0, right? So let me actually just do that real quick. Let me just, oops, sorry. Hold on. Let me just do that. There you go. All right. While we're talking about other stuff, we'll just go ahead and get that bar to lower. And then now I can kind of explain it a little bit. But yeah, so let's just keep going on a little bit here. So to the right of that, right, you're going to have, in this case, your current situation. Now, this is a pretty good spot to start, to be honest, when you are starting the game. It kind of tells you everything going around in your nation, so insufficient tax capacity, low market access, all those things. And then besides that, you have, in my case, I have this little button here, which shows that I don't have any active research. So just basically telling you, hey, you might want to research something, right? So we're just going to go with that, right? Just whatever, right? We're going to go in that in the end of the video. To the right, to the top right of the whole screen, you're going to have, in this case, your time controls, which can be controlled by 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And you can also press the space bar, obviously, to start or stop it. And then below that, you have the construction queue menu, which we're going to go into this in a lot more depth in the economy guide that I will be doing. And then below that, you have your current relations. So you can tell from earlier, we did a diplomatic lens and we increased relations with France and Sweden. This will be shown here. So anyone you're decreasing relations with, any sort of diplomatic action you're doing, like increasing or damaging relations with, will be shown right here. Below that, you have like a little screen that basically tells you that these guys here, the evangelical church, are wanting to enact religious schools, right? You don't really want that. Luckily, their support and their radicalism is pretty low, so that part is good, right? They're not going to cause too much trouble. And then you have down here, you have the outliner. Now, the outliner currently only have the commanders, and in your game, I believe you only have that too. But if you go over here to the left side of your screen and you click on outliner down here, you can pin different things to the outliner. So anything you want to have in your outliner, you can just pin right here, right? So typically I like to have, in this case, my interest groups there, just so I can quickly see at a glance who is currently the, like leading clout in my country, or leading like the stage in terms of government here in my country, right? And then you also have the commanders. These are always really good as well to see how many troops they have and how many commanders you have in general, because these guys will be used in wars against other nations. To get with Austria for my case. Okay, so now we're gonna pause it because now it's good. So so there you go. And then the Prussian market, as you can see, it gives a quick glance of the 3 major resources you need and the 3 major resources that you might want to export. We'll be going over all that, but in general, I don't really follow this, to be honest. I just kind of keep it there because I like having it there. But you should really be looking at your market a lot more than just looking at these 3 major resources, for sure. And we're gonna go over that as well in the economy guide, and I'll show you, how to deal with your markets and all that stuff, and how to deal with any economy things that happen. So that's that. And then at the bottom we have, in this case, the lenses. So there's different type of lenses. You have diplomacy, production, political, military, and trade, right? And each of these lenses do different things, and they show you different information. So for example, with the production lens, you have agriculture, resources, and industry. These are buildings you're able to build in your country. So when I click on this, I am building now 5 building levels, right, or whatever, of this good, which in this case is livestock ranches, in this province of the Prussian Anhalt, right? So right here, that's basically what it's saying. Out of a maximum of 73 of these levels, right, of buildings, right there. Okay, and we're gonna, the reason why I'm saying that is because it's a little bit more in depth than that, but that's just like the general view, right? So for now, I'm just gonna give you guys the general view, and then you can obviously go here. I can build, hey, let me just build some coal mines, Silesia. I'm gonna build a whole bunch of logging camps. Let me just reiterate this here. You do not want to be doing what I'm doing, right? Obviously, you want to be a little bit more meticulous as to where you build things, and there's a particular reason why. But again, this is just a beginner's guide. We're gonna be doing, everything I'm talking about here. We're gonna be going a lot more into depth with it in my actual Let's Play series, so you guys will be able to see exactly why I do certain things, right? And the military lens, again, this is just for you to be able to build different buildings, like these 2 things. You'll be able to, recruit admirals and recruit generals, but this can also be done through some of these actions here, like the military here. So you can also mobilize all your generals. You must be at war to do this, though. You also have a navy as well. You can see how much convoys they require, their supply strength, how many signals are under control in this, because we have this one, and I believe this one. Yeah, these 2 right here. All right, so there you go. And yeah, and you can recruit for the generals through here, or you can go to the army and recruit generals through here as well. And sorry, I meant to say admirals here. All right, so there you go. So that takes care of the military, basically. And then you have the trade lens, which again, very similar. You can have buildings, so you can expand the construction sectors. You can build more ports, which allows you to just gain a lot more. Well, besides, I believe, infrastructure, it also increases the infrastructure. It also increases the amount of convoys you have, which helps you with trade and all that stuff as well. And you also have railways, which this will be very, very important, especially if you are a developed nation, like a major power. Definitely want to get railways going there. You also have trade actions, which this one I don't really use, to be honest. Yeah, I just don't really see the point of this, to be honest. I mean, it has potentially its uses, but in general, you don't really use this tab here. Import trade routes you do, and export trade routes you do quite a bit. So there you go. And again, we'll go on that into the economy and trade section as well, into a little bit more depth. So on the left side now, we have, we're almost done here, guys. On the left side now, we have basically politics, budget, buildings, market, military, diplomacy, technology, cultures, population, journal, outliner, and the map list, which is just, again, what we saw here. So there you go. All right, so they do have some repetitive stuff here in the outliner, but it's perfectly fine, no big deal. And then obviously, you know, it pretty much tells you all those things there. Now, we are going to be going over particularly the diplomacy aspect, like I was mentioning. But before we do that, though, let's go ahead and quickly go over this. So you can see now the bar has turned red, right? So I can turn this back, right, to what we had it before, and you will see that I am earning money, right? So let's just tax these guys, right? So you can see that I'm earning 23K, but the bar is still the same amount, right? This is because, again, you're earning 23K per week. This game is based on a per week basis. So, you know, Monday Monday through Sunday there, as you can tell. But basically what you're doing is we have now a credit line that is available, right? So this is what we practically are doing in terms of like building these buildings and stuff, and going into credit for it. In other words, having a negative balance is deficit spending, right? Which is not necessarily bad. The real world economy is that it's practically what they do, particularly in the USA. But, you know, it has its pros and cons. But, you know, in this game, what we're dealing with it basically is you're having a red line here. The further the red goes to the right, in other words, when that red line reaches all the way to the right, it's going to be kind of bad, right? That basically means that you have spent your maximum credit and you're going to be taking money, I believe, directly from your industry's cash reserves, which is pretty bad. Basically, once you get there, you don't want to be at that position. So you have to kind of stop yourself from being in that position. There's multiple different things or reasons why you could be. And there's also some potential reasons as to why you may need to get close to there. But in general, you don't want to do it. Okay, in general, it's not that good to have a massive credit line, right? Again, unless you absolutely have to. And with some nations that you play as, you might need to. Again, you have a whole bunch of different nations you can select. So it just kind of depends on the situation that you are in, right? But in general, you don't really want to do that. And then this red bar, like I said, the further down it goes, the worse it is. In general, this bar here, though, for the money one, you're going to want to have like towards the middle. So maybe slightly positive, maybe slightly negative, even up the way where it's like negative, right? So like red bar here to the middle, it's okay, right? Especially if the money is white. So sometimes the money might be white, right? So in this case, you saw a green, you saw a red. It might be white. And this is based on your temporary national expenses and your temporary national revenues, right? So let us say that the investment pool transfer of 602K are gone, right? So now there's $0 here, or £0 or whatever. So now I'm having to put forth my money, the nation's money, directly into here, right? So I'm having to spend this 21.5K right here directly from my treasury, right? In this case, from my credit, but we're going to be paying that back, right? So we're going to be doing 21.5 directly from my treasury, right? If that number, right, is less than what I earn, so if that could change, if it is less than what I earn, so these two numbers are greater than this, but you have a temporary national expense, right? Then this number here is showing positive, then you will have a white number. That's very confusing, I understand. We're going to go ahead and just add some construction sectors here, and I will show you real quick what that is. Just going to add like a whole bunch of them so you guys can see. Alright, so we're going to continue the video here a little bit. So we're going to see once it gets to that. So see, as you can tell, it's going up now. Again, you see how it's positive now. But we're going to continue while we're building these construction sectors. That way you guys can basically see what's going on here. Let me just delete these. There you go. Alright, we're going to start building those a little bit. And you can kind of see when that's going to happen. Okay. Alright, we'll get into that. Alright, so talking about diplomacy now. This is going to be the next section pretty much. So for diplomacy, like I mentioned, we kind of went already over, to be honest, everything we really needed to know. But any action you take in terms of diplomacies will be here. Right? You have diplomatic actions, diplomatic plays, and regional actions. The first thing you would want to do as a diplomacy, especially if you are a major power, is declare an interest. So by declaring an interest, it basically means that your nation will get involved in anything that occurs in this area, right? And any sort of things, any wars or conflicts that occur in that area, you will be invited to join it. All right, so let's say I have an interest in the Andes and La Plata region, as well as Gran Colombia region, right? So I can only get a maximum of 5 interest. The reason for that is because it is actually based on your power ranking. So I'm currently ranked number 5, and that is my current maximum. The more naval bases you have, the greater you will get in terms of the greater you can potentially have in terms of all these things, right? So you can have a increased. Sorry, I'm just trying to do this here real quick. So you can have like an increased. You can have, there you go. All right, you can have an increased number of declared interest with the greater number of naval bases you have. Basically, what that dictates, right, is that you have a greater naval projection in the world, and your navy is powerful enough to be able to control or, you know, go overseas far enough and have it as a big presence. For example, the UK has this, right? Or Great Britain, they have this factor because they have a very strong naval presence, 150 flotillas to be exact. So they're going to get a little bit more declared interest because of the fact that they have such a strong, you know, presence in terms of the navy, right? And by the way, she just took office. Queen Victoria of Hanover. Very nice. All right, there you go. So yeah, so that's pretty much how that is involved. And and then with those interests, right? Let's say you're over here. If it is a land that is not colonized, these white ones basically like Luango, Fang, Teke, etc. These lands you are able to colonize. All right, and that's a whole different issue or a whole different story. But you will need to obviously have the institution for it over here, which in this case we don't have it, so we're not able to colonize quite yet. And that is done through your laws. Colonization efforts, you have two different options. This one exploits them. This one just is more, you know, more friendly, so we say. So there you go. All right. So anyway, so yeah, so that's pretty much what you do in terms of these two sections. Now in diplomatic plays, this is gonna be very, very important. This is where you're gonna make things happen, right? So let's say that I want to, I don't know, make Netherlands my puppet, right? And here you can see that you're gonna get a screen saying, "Hey, are you sure you want this to happen?" You'd be like, "All right, yeah, sure. You know, why not?" Then in this case, you're gonna go ahead and say, "Okay, well, we're gonna face Netherlands and Luxembourg because they're probably allies or something, right?" Then we are gonna have this country here because that's our ally, and then we're gonna say, "Okay, these people here, which is a lot of major powers, have an interest in this region, and therefore they might join either side or they might remain neutral. We don't know, right?" So you have to kind of take this into consideration. You know what I'm saying? Let's just go ahead and go through with this, though. All right, let's go ahead and go through with this. And now you see this happens. So in this theater, right, if you play Hole 4, you kind of know what I'm talking about. In this theater here, you know, you have different theaters. So as you can see, you have Iberian theater, Occitania, Danubia, Poland, Russian, etc. Right, the world is divided into different theaters. In each theater, you can only have, I believe, one. Yeah, you can just have one diplomatic play happen in the theater. So, for example, in the theater of Rhine, we have an escalation that is occurring, and the current phase is opening moves. This is determined by the bars here. So this from here to here, it's the opening moves. Then you have here to here is going to be, I believe, like the maneuvers or something like that. And then here to here is basically get prepared, shit's about to hit the fan type stuff. You're going to go to war. All right, that's what it is. At this point, there's no turning back. Once you cross this little bar here, you're going to go to war. There's no turning back. All right, so just letting you know. This is actually very important to know because you can back down right before it hits it, right? Now, you're going to be looked at as a pussy, but, I mean, you could technically back out, though, all right? So just letting you know. You have a chance to still back out in the case that you know, that you start something, you're like, okay, you know, maybe it's not a good idea, right? But anyway, so here you can see we are now the initiators because we are the ones who started this diplomatic play. The target of Netherlands is currently very fearful towards us because we are very strong. We're very strong. And although we are mobilized, we have a strong presence compared to them. They only have 21 mobilized battalions or potential battalions to be mobilized. We have 150. So they know this, and they know that we could potentially beat them up very quickly. So they're going to definitely want to try and get some nations that will help them. All right, so if we kind of keep this going here a little bit, you can kind of see here in the swaying countries that currently it seems that Lippe is actually leaning towards the Netherlands. And Austria, they just decided to go ahead and join the Netherlands because they're like, you know what? This is a good way of, you know, beating up a little bit of Prussian booty. They're not able to beat me up, though. But, you know, it is what it is. And I'll tell you why in the next couple videos. But anyway, so now they're confident, right? Now they're confident because now well, primarily they have, they have Austria on their side, and they've been promised an obligation to do so. We could also do the same thing, but would have to have a little bit higher relations with people. So that's why I wasn't able to invite anyone. Well, I could invite the East India Company, which is not bad, right? 131. But in our case, it's fine. It's not a big video. It's just for demonstration purposes. And then as you can see, now you can still back down. Actually, you can still back down even when you're here. Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, that's not bad. Yeah, and this is going to be the countdown to war. Can I? I thought you couldn't, though. Nah, it's okay. Whatever. Anyways, if this button is green, you can back down, boys. That's all it is. Alright, so yeah, so this goes as well. This type of screen will be shown as well with any sort of things you do. And before, I think what I meant to say was, when you go over here, like in this phase here, right? The thing you cannot do is you cannot put any more war goals after you get over here. So the countdown to war is you're going to go to war, right? But you're not able to add any more war goals. So basically, the two sides need to prepare themselves to go ahead and be in this conflict. You want to mobilize in the start or like in the middle or so. It's fine, right? Because sometimes they might be, for example, as you saw in the beginning, they were fearful of me, right? They might back down if they don't get any support. So if Austria might not have joined, they might not have been, wanting or even they might not have been in a position to go ahead and fight me. So they would have been like, you know what, it might be better if I just go ahead and back down a little bit, right? They say, we'll just take the L, it is what it is, right? So they might have just backed down in that case. But since they have a backer, as Austria, a great power, they're gonna say, all right, you know what, we're going in, right? We're gonna give this a shot, right? They're gonna try and humiliate me, and they're gonna try and make me pay for their casualties or basically how much money they spend on this war, right? In general, you do want to put reparations for sure, especially if you know you're going to win, easy money back. And depending on what goals you have, you can just add them on there. You can add multiple goals. I already would have showed you guys that. Let me back down. Let's see if this works. Let's go over here. Let me try one more time so I can show you. Oh, bruh. Here we go. We can't do it no more because we have like a truce with them now. But let's do it with Belgium, right? Why not? Let's be power hungry. All right, so that's what I mean. So you have, in this case, 100 maneuvers, which this is the middle phase there, the maneuver phase, basically. And right now we have Puppet Belgium, right? And we're given 100 maneuvers. They only have 60. And in this case, you can add war goals, right? And you have war reps. And I want Belgium war reps. I want them to pay me for whatever I lost, right, in terms of the money. And this will cost me 10 of those little points. So now we only have 90. So you can, in theory, you can put as many of these as you want, right? Let's say I just want to, do all these, even open their market. I could do all that, right? I can put as many as them as they want. You could also do it with nations that join. So let's say that Russia joins, right? Then I can say, okay, I want to humiliate Russia. That will be an option here, right? You can put as many as you want, but you do have a limited amount, actually, in terms of the maneuvers, right? So you can put all of them, but it's going to be limited in terms of maneuvers, right? Also, another thing to note is that if you saw in the beginning, we also had down here infamy, right? And this infamy is not good, especially if you get to like where I'm at right now, notorious, or even like typically you want to keep this kind of like below 50, to be honest. You want to kind of keep this below 50. That's going to be your sweet spot right there. But in general, right, you're going to want to keep this low. And that's where I was saying that maybe having a excess of diplomatic influence there might not be bad because you do get a greater decay, right? But it just depends on where you want to take your nation. That's the beauty about this game, right? You're able to just take your nation where you want it, and you're able to decide what you want to do with it, right? It's for the most part, right? Like 98% of it, it is up to you. It is up to the player to decide. So that's the beauty about this game right there. That's what it is, a society, nation building and economic simulator. It's a W, in my opinion. Personally, I love games like these, so that's why. But yeah, so there you go. So that is going to be the diplomatic plays, which that pretty much, in essence, covers the diplomacy aspect of the game. We already went over the first parts, which, was going over here. And by the way, you can right-click any nation. It will give you, like, all these things. Any actions you can do with them, it will give it to you, right? Depending on their relations with you, you can do different actions. So, so there you go. You can also embargo a nation, which this might not be bad at all, to be honest. And you'll see why in the economic one. But yeah, so that's that's pretty much everything you need to basically know. You have all these options. If you hover over them, they pretty much tell you what they do, right? I don't have to go through each of them, to be honest, but the major ones I did go over. Okay, so there you go. Now, lastly, we're gonna go ahead and cover the technology tab. So let me just go here because see, this is another thing that you need. Okay. All right, we gotta wait for this here a little bit, but we're gonna be covering technology, right? So, actually, before we do that, let me tell you guys a little secret here, a little quick tip. So, a tip is, you see me kind of go through the go here, right, and it doesn't go away. For you guys, it might go away. And for beginners, you might have to like sit there and might have to wait like for 5 or seconds or something like that, and then it will go ahead and count you in, or then you'll be able to like move it over. But you see, I'm doing it. I can do it instantly, right? And I can do it for multiple different things, right, like that. And I can show you how to do it real quick. That's called the action log. So if you go over here to escape, it's actually a very good tip here, guys. You go over here to settings. It's gonna make it so much quicker. And then you go over to where it says, in this case, oops, sorry, it's gonna be in the game, game settings, and you're gonna scroll down just a little bit to where you see tooltip action. Yours might be like a mouse tendency, and like the numbers might be all over the place. But basically, what you want to do is you want to click this, go to action log, and then you want to scroll this all the way down to the minimal possible, which in this case is 0.05 seconds. This just makes it go quicker, right? So like there's less delay and all that stuff, which is, ideally that's what I want. So that's why it goes really quick. And then action log is going to allow you to press the middle mouse button on any sort of tooltip, and that will give you the the different tooltips. So you might want to give it a couple tries here. It does take a little bit to get correctly, and sometimes it might be a little bit finicky, but in general, that's how you do it. All right, pretty important stuff there. That was a really good tip for you guys right there. All right, so back over here to technology, which is the last thing we're going to talk about today. Pretty much technology, it's not really that hard, to be honest. It's just depending on what you want. So we have production, military, and society technologies. All of them are going to be based on obviously different things. So production is going to be based on production. Military is going to be based on, you guessed it, military, and also Navy though. And society is going to be based on, well, societal improvements. So, so those are your 3 major tabs, 3 major things. Now, for the production tab, you're going to have obviously things that will help out your industry a lot. It will make them more profitable, give you more, what are they called? Production methods to use that will basically cause you to, to just have greater, for the most part, it kind of depends, but we'll have like better, better efficiency and all that stuff. So, but at the cost of more goods, more resource inputs. So you want to kind of see where you want to take your nation, right? In general, okay. In general, you kind of want to focus on your production, right? This applies for most of the major nations, what I mean. Like, if you're playing like a smaller nation stuff, it's going to be a little bit different. But, in general, you're going to want to focus on your production to be able to industrialize correctly. Your military, particularly this, like getting better guns and stuff, is the ideal thing. 100%. You definitely want to be more technologically advanced than the enemy, because then you'll have a very, very strong advantage over the enemy. Trust me. You will see that in the first in the last play when I do it again, project against Austria. You will see that. And then society is just kind of like, it's a bit of a mixture of all things. So you like over here on the left, you have like infrastructure and stuff. You have more cash reserves, so you're able to spend more money. You're able to maintain more money, like keep more money. Not really ideal, but it does leave you to mutual funds, which this is ideal. This is pretty good. Basically like institutional, like a stock market type thing. You have, this one here gives you more tax capacity. You can just kind of read through them and see what they are, right? And you can see, depending on whether or not your nation needs it, right? So you can just kind of go through them and see whether or not your nation needs it, right? Pretty easy, but we're gonna go over like how they actually work. So as you can see here, each time I click on them, it's requiring a certain amount of pointage. In this case, 7,500. If I click on someone that costs a bit more, it's gonna be 32. So if I click on this one, for example, nationalism is what I've been doing all along, right? We currently have 7.04k that are currently been accrued to this technology. And then when I reach 7.5, I will go to unlock it, which gives me plus 10% authority, but it will also allow me to do other things with the other German nations that we have and be able to unify them, right? So then you see on the right of it that you have plus 58 from innovation. And this is because we are researching this technology ourselves, right? We are using our universities to research this technology. And then you can see here, what I mean. So when you click on it, you have 58.24, which is the exact amount that we're earning. 50 is the base value, but each university we have, well, not each university, but with the current universities we have, we get an extra 8.2 from the universities in Brandenburg, right? That's where we have our current university at. And then you can obviously build more universities to reach a maximum of 118, this is basically capped from your literacy rate. So your literacy is what caps this value here, right? So you're able to build a whole bunch of universities, but there will be a certain cap to it, which will be 68.35, right? So you kind of want to build enough universities that will give you to this number, right? And that's basically kind of what you're looking for. Now, another great thing about this is that you do have technology spread, okay? So as you can see here in pharmaceuticals, we are gaining technologies, but you can clearly see that I chose nationalism, right? Clearly chose nationalism since the beginning of the game. But as you can see, the technology is spreading. Now, it's spreading from anywhere from 26 to 79, right? We don't know for sure, but it just kind of depends, right? Depends on how much influence it's getting from different nations around us, etc. It's the in-game calculations and all the good stuff, right? So don't worry too much about that. But basically, you're just able to get free technology spread without you having to be actively researching it. For example, we're also getting rifling, right? Now, in general, what I tend to do is I tend to just basically keep it. I tend to just let them, like those technologies, I tend to just keep them and let them research it, right? I focus on other technologies. The reason for this, unless like you absolutely need the technology, for example, like let's just say I absolutely needed that health system, right? To keep like my people alive and be able to produce more and get that extra prop growth, then you're going to probably want to get this one and you want to probably research. Now you see bam and bam, you know what I'm saying? So now we're earning a minimum of 84, but a maximum of 138. So now we're going to be earning technology even quicker, right? So it just kind of depends, right? You kind of want to look at what you have, what technology spreads you have, and maybe rush rifling, right? Make it go quicker. That way you can get rifles in the arms industry and be able to produce better guns, pretty much. Or should I say more guns compared to the ones before, right? So, you know, it is definitely up to you. You know, like I said, that's what I'm saying. It really does depend on what you really need, okay? So I think that basically covers it, to be honest. Oh, and if you want to get more of the universities, it's going to be right here. There you go. So it's going to be universities. You can tell you get +2 innovations. So you know that 68 number we saw earlier from there, that it was like the cap of it. You want to do like a little bit of math there. You can just round it plus or minus, you know, not that big of a deal. Doesn't even have to be precise. But you can see that it gives you 2 innovation. We already had 8. So do the math and you can see how much you will need to build, in this case, in order to be able to get your maximum amount possible. Okay. Now note that these do cost money. Obviously, they are not free. As you can tell, they are going to be costing you 1,800 or 0.18k in this case, due to this particular reason, the cost of paper. But I think there also is other reasons. Yeah, like you also have like the government wages and stuff, which I do not think it accounts for in this case. But anyways, you'll see that when we go over the economy guide, okay? Don't worry about that, guys. If you can, okay, just go ahead and, you know, leave in the comment sections some improvements you think. This is going to be my first video on YouTube. So, you know, if you can, just kind of give me some pointers, give me some tips you guys might have. Greatly appreciated. Any sort of constructive criticism is appreciated for sure. I'm going to have chapters in the description. So you guys can just kind of click on the thing, I believe, and you'll be able to take you there. I also just want to go ahead and just thank all of you guys for staying with me here to the end. You know, like I mentioned, I know it can be a very daunting game at first glance, but trust me, it's one of the most fun games I have played in a while, and I'm very excited to continue to play more, as well as make other videos for you guys in different games as well. If you did enjoy the video, please go ahead and like and leave a comment, as well as subscribe, letting me know on any questions, and make sure to also turn those notifications on to be notified on my other guided videos, and eventually playthrough videos in the very near future of Victoria 3 and many more games. Now, thanks again, and I will see you guys in the next video.